Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and today we have a video courtesy of Reckless Sneak driving the Tier 7 destroyer I forgot to mention in my Tier 7 ranked roundup, talking about the ships I thought I would see. And the Leningrad's definitely one I expect to see a lot of. The reason it was overlooked? Pretty simple. I don't have it, and it just didn't clue into my head that it was a 7. For some reason, I thought it was a 6. Anyways, the reason you're going to see a lot of this ship, it can really put out the damage, but I think it has a couple weaknesses, and those weaknesses are ultimately why I ended up getting the Qckslvrslash instead of the Leningrad back when I had to kind of make a decision, which destroyer did I want to get. And the main one to me is the guns. They're great, they do a lot of damage, good trajectory, but the turrets are slow. And ultimately when you get into a knife fight, if you end up in that situation in a ranked, sometimes you're just going to have to, especially on Epicenter. Having quick turning, quick responding guns is vital to your survival. Now, you can overcome that a bit with some skilled play, but, you know, two equally skilled players against each other, the guy with the more responsive ship and guns, I think, is going to win in close. And where the Leningrad and the Bliss really do a lot of their damage is out far. This is part of the reason, you know, a couple seasons ago I ran my Sims a lot, is just once you get into that really close in fight, you know, those really fast turning American guns definitely help you. But the Leningrad has a couple key points that really do make it quite good. It's got a very good firing range, can theoretically stealth fire a bit, though not as good as the Qckslvrslash. Same 8-kilometer torpedo range as he wipes that Shiratsu off the map. And, you know, not good detection, but kind of what you expect out of a Russian or gunboat destroyer. But ultimately, you know, it comes down to the player. People are going to choose the ships they're comfortable in. It's a little unfortunate that I really think premium vessels have the advantage at Tier 7. Not necessarily because they're overpowered or anything. To me, they're just a little more versatile. They're almost more well-rounded. They don't have any big pluses, but they don't really have any huge drawbacks either, and I think that's going to be one of the major deciding factors this season. Right now, Reckless Sneak has encountered the common problem of the gunboat destroyer. You pop your smoke, thinking you can set up, and well, everything near you spotting also happens to find their way into smoke, so you've got nothing to shoot at. Fortunately, the friendly Mitsuki does pull out, starts to get vision, so Reckless starts to back up, back into that smoke screen, and work over this Pensacola. And I really do think the enemy team is going to make a big misplay this game. I think they've got a couple key advantages, and they just never really flex them. And a big part of that is when that Shiratsu died. When that destroyer died, you know, all these battleships, and the cruisers for that matter, don't feel safe pushing into Alpha, but they need to. And ultimately, one of the best ships to do it is that Qckslvrslash. He's got hydroacoustic surge. He's got some great guns for ripping destroyers apart. You know, they're not 203s, they're smaller caliber, but boy do they hurt, and they fire fast. You can see he's turning away, and that definitely makes things awkward for all his battleships. And unfortunately, Reckless Sneak, or fortunately, Reckless Sneak is a good shot. The flat trajectory of these Russian shells, making it, you know, reasonable that he can hit a target 11 kilometers away. I find when you're in the American DDs, once something's kind of past 8 or 9 kilometers, it's more a hope that some shells land rather than an intention. Like, I'm aiming properly, they're going to hit. Now, the loft on those things gives people so much time to maneuver and kind of get out of the way that you kind of just spray, and you get lucky sometimes. So right now, in my head, I would be getting up against this island, and it appears to be exactly what Reckless Sneak is doing. And the reason's pretty simple. You've got smoke off cooldown, you've got, shorter range torpedoes. He doesn't have the ability to stealth fire them any particularly long range, which means the best way to ambush someone is to use an island as cover on the way in. And that Bayern is looking like a key target. Now, personally, I think he gets a little hung up looking at that Gneisenau, misses his chance to fire early at the Bayern, ends up targeting him there despite the fact that the game doesn't show it, but he gets spotted pretty much at the same time that he manages to fire the torpedoes. And, you see a DD, if you're in a battleship, you just start turning. And unfortunately, the Bayern, isn't a fool. He gets his ship turning and dodges all of them. Now, something you can do in this kind of ambush situation is fire your first set and then wait to see where the ship turns and then fire the second one. It becomes a lot harder to dodge, two spaced volleys than one big wall. And Reckless saw that Königsberg coming in, popped the speed boost, and is getting the F out of here because, like I was saying earlier, that Königsberg has hydro. He kills destroyers. That Farragut is a goner. He drove up into the smoke thinking it was some safe place to be in ambush using those short-range American torpedoes, and he pays the price. Reckless tries to put his AP to some use here, and I like the decision to use it because there's a lot of great situations, but for me, I tend to stick to that kind of 5-kilometer rule when driving my destroyers. Yeah, you're going to get some damage, but for me, the chances of lighting fires and kind of getting that long burn damage, or just forcing a damage control, can be a lot more valuable. And looking at the map, you can kind of see what's happened to the enemy team. They all gathered up here in the north. They're very strong here, but they didn't take advantage of that. And now they're 250 points down. The kills are more or less equal. They're down a ship right now, but that can change pretty easily. And Reckless's team has a pretty secure hold on the caps, and Reckless isn't about to give A up. And this is one of the places that the Leningrad, the Bliss, the Kiev, all these gunboat destroyers with flat arcs really do a great job. It's a very fast ship, so you put it at 10 kilometers and maneuver, things are going to have a very hard time hitting you, as Reckless is demonstrating. Sure, occasionally something's going to get a lucky shot, because they're just spraying hoping to hit, but if you keep that rudder shifting back and forth, focus more on the maneuver and a little less on how many guns you have pointing at a target, you're going to do a lot better. And that carries through to really all aspects of destroyer play. If you get in a knife fight, yeah, it's important to have your guns shooting, but it's more important to focus on what profile you're giving to that enemy destroyer and doing your best to make sure you're not setting yourself up to eat a bunch of torpedoes or high damage broadsides. And I like Reckless's decision here. He's slowly pulling away. He's keeping his guns going, but he's working his way back towards hard cover in the form of land. Now, there's situations you don't want to do this because you kind of abandon ships, but both his battleships are far enough south, they're not going to get focused down, so there's no worry there. And, this isn't a gunfight that you're going to win, like, just running in face first. By coming to the south, he has the option to come back up through this channel and cross-peed or, sneak attack anything that comes through there, thinking it can get towards Bravo. And sure, the enemy team finally has 2 cap points here, or about to, but you can see kind of 3 ships chasing down 1 enemy battleship, and while you like to think 2-on-1 and eventually 3-on-1 can take out this BB, I wouldn't count that guy out, because looking at how they're maneuvering over there, I think the BBs actually got a bit of an edge. And, I mean, only time will tell. Yep, there goes the Pensacola on his team. So now it's kind of one-on-one. So Reckless definitely has to do his work here, because the enemy team is clawing this one back, and they're in a very good situation. They're grouped up tight, which allows them to focus down the ships that come at them one at a time. Well, that is until this Königsberg makes the terrible decision of turning away. Sees a Dunkirk, goes, you know what, I can kill that. Turns off, and Reckless is just ready and waiting to set up. He's checking with his torpedoes what it's doing, and you see, swaps to AP. Inside that, you know, kind of critical range for big damage. The Königsberg is lightly armored. He can easily do a lot right here, but that Dunkirk had his sights set and wiped him off the map. So you kind of have a decision to make here. The Dunkirk isn't in the best decision. Depending what these ships over here do, if they start to loop back, this Dunkirk could get caught out. So I like what Reckless does. He builds a smoke wall. It's about to happen any second here. And, you know, he does so with himself in mind, but I feel also his teammate. He puts torpedoes off, careful to avoid the sinking wreck of that Königsberg, and I can't tell you how many times I've watched destroyers just unload an entire volley right into the sinking vessel to only see them all get blocked. And he's got the smoke screen up, and he just goes to work. Well, at least on what he can see. And this is one of those situations you really wish the Dunkirk had a plane to put in the air, or put it in the air if he does have it, because planes can see past smoke. Can't see in it, but they can see over it, and he would probably be able to see. Now, watching what torpedo just hit, Reckless has a bit of an inkling of where the enemy ship is, so he puts some rounds out, but, well, none connect. And the second he sees that it is a Gneisenau charging his way, he ain't staying around, because once again, Hydro. You have to be on the lookout for the Hydro, and the Gneisenau has torpedoes as well. So, a big threat in the form of that, and he's getting the heck out. At least I think the Gneisenau has Hydro. Correct me if I am wrong on that one. And once again here, Reckless is retreating to kind of the nearest hard cover. You know, soft cover in the form of smoke is fine and dandy, but things can shoot you in it. They can hurt you. Hard cover is always going to work. He gets some torpedoes off at that Gneisenau, starts putting his guns to work, and, well, the Gneisenau was looking straight his way, lands a fire, quickly gets put out, and, well, Reckless almost runs himself aground here. I think he was focusing a little bit too much on his guns, has to slow right up to make sure he doesn't get himself caught, but does a good job of making sure he doesn't do that. And gets a torpedo in, almost 11,000 damage and a flood, and based on that earlier torpedo, this one's gonna stick. So between a flood and a fire, 10,000 damage, well, now 7,000 after that Dunkirk fired is not hard. Unfortunately, that Dunkirk is a goner. Eats two of the Peds from the Gneisenau, and he's dead, but so is the Gneisenau. So, at this point, I want to highlight something very smart that Reckless Sneak does here. And it once again comes down to the use of hard cover. So you can see the Fuso right now is driving straight at him, but the Fuso's going to turn and start tracking this way. So all Reckless has to do is slow up, and he can keep his guns going. The Fuso's always driving out into more open kind of water and gun arcs, whereas for that Fuso to hit Reckless, if Reckless is moving forward, he has to go straight through the mountain. And quite frankly, Reckless wasn't even spotted there when the land was blocking kind of his bridge. I'm not exactly sure where the visual box for a lot of ships are, because it seems like a fair amount of your bow or stern can be sticking out and you're never getting caught. But here you can see just lobbing those shells into the path that the Fuso is willingly driving into and getting the damage. If that Fuso were a little wiser, he should have cut back. I know he wants to get the cap, but he's eating a lot of unnecessary damage here. You know, Reckless has gotten a couple fires on him, is just continuing to put damage in. Sure, it's not 10,000 damage a volley, and I think that's why, you know, sometimes battleships just let destroyers shoot at them. Oh, it's not big damage, but it adds up. You know, if each volley is, say, 500 damage when it comes every 5 seconds, that really adds up quickly. And when you add fires in there, well, it just is a little silly to just take shells. Now, maybe he thought he could get behind this island quickly, and there's a third fire on that Fuso, and just look at that damage tick up. And he had no means to return fire at Reckless, just because Reckless made good use of the land. And, well, he's going to the right place here too. He recognizes that anything could happen, secure the cap. A is uncontested, nothing's there. The Fuso's almost dead. The enemy battleship is unspotted, but he's probably working his way down into Charlie. And Reckless picks up Witherer, high caliber, and any second here is gonna get that grand old arsonist. And a really good way to put a cap on a great game, 127,000 damage, and I think he's shown, you know, why this ship is as popular as it is, and why when I missed mentioning it, I got a lot of comments going, hey, the Leningrad. You didn't mention the Leningrad. Well, I'm sorry guys, hopefully this makes up for it a bit. Personally, I don't have it to run, so I can't, unfortunately. Anyways, not a lot is going to change the rest of this battle, so let's jump to the post-battle. And when you start looking at the post-battle results, it really does come together how solid a performance this was. 616,000 credits, 13,451 experience, got Witherer, Arsonist, First Blood, Devastating Strike, High Caliber, 127,000 damage. Granted, only 3 kills, but this could easily have been a Kraken if the timing on some shells was a little different and he had a chance to work over some ships like that Königsberg that the Dunkirk aced. Either way, when you look at the experience, just shy of 2,600 with 2562, top of the team, no surprise there, and really showed off why the Leningrad is a strong ship, and you're gonna see it a lot in this ranked season. You know, my feelings are the Bliss is a little bit better, a little more all-round, well-rounded, but, you know, if you've got a Leningrad, it's worth giving it a go. And when you look at the damage, you know, it did damage to everything. And that's one of those things that matters. Some ships, you know, are better at hunting down one specific class, and that just doesn't really work too well in ranked. So whatever you choose to bring, make sure you're good in it and know how to kill, you know, destroyers, battleships, cruisers, carriers, all of them in it, because you're going to come up against all of them, and quite probably in some odd man situations. But this being a premium ship, you do get the premium credits, 550,000 credits essentially taken home after expenses, and almost 30,000 experience for the Russian captain he's got on this thing, which is absolutely insane. I wish I was getting that on my Bliss, because once again, one of the advantages and reasons I think you're going to see the Leningrad is you can drop any Russian captain into it. The Błyskawica is a dead end. There's one Polish ship, so you probably only have one captain, unless you're weird like a couple of my friends that have like 2 16-point captains for their Bliss with different builds. Anyways, thank you very much, Reckless Sneak, for sending this one in. Sorry it took so long to get up. Anyone else who has one, Qckslvrslash@gmail.com. But please wait for the patch to drop, because I just recorded like 11 games in a row with the patch coming out tonight. Anyways, if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to the channel or clicking that thumbs up button. Both help my channel out and keep me motivated to producing the best content I can for you. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys tomorrow.